Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Everyday Heroes podcast. Today, I'm excited to share with you Taimi Lawlor. And Taimi is a fascinating person. And the reason why she's so fascinating is because, when as parents raising autistic children, I don't know about you, we throw everything at our children. We do the hair analysis, we do the stool test, the wee test, the blood work. We do it all. We do all of this testing to see where they're at. But you know what we don't do? We don't do that testing on ourselves. So we expect ourselves to run like huge amounts of an entire house, do all the therapies, keep up with all the invoices, manage our typical children, keep in contact and make sure that we've got a beautiful, stable marriage. And we're expecting to do all of that on an empty cup, right? We're expecting to do all those things and wonder why we're moody, why we're, gaining weight, why we're anxious, why we're depressed, why we can't get out of bed. These things are the things that are stopping us from being our very best selves. And Taimi Lawlor is going to be sharing with us so much of how we can assist with so many things that can help us with that journey, how we can really step up to the plate to be a better parent to our children. So Taimi, thank you so much for coming out today and having a chat.
Thank you. Today, your day, my night.
Absolutely, we are in the future. But I wanted to ask you first and foremost, we often, as parents, we often talk about traditional approaches, right? We've been conditioned to go with a traditional approach. Why does that often miss the mark when it comes to anxiety, fatigue, hormonal issues, and even weight gain? What are we missing when we go for that traditional option as opposed to something else?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I get it. Why you go to the traditional option, right? It's everywhere. You're conditioned to do that. But when you take a step back and think, is it working? Usually, it's not, or not to the degree that you want it to. So then you have to decide to pivot, and where do you pivot to? And that's where functional nutrition, functional medicine comes in, functional health. You want to get to the root cause as to why you're having these feelings. It's never just one thing. It's never, ever one thing. It's impossible. We're too dynamic. We're human beings. It's it's always more than one thing. So you've done the one thing with the traditional model, and you've probably gotten some relief, but you haven't gotten the relief that you wanted. So then going and digging deeper, which it's too, when you go to the functional road, it's a longer journey. It's not a quick fix. We're also conditioned for quick fixes. It's not reality, right? So when you go and you dig, like for anxiety, it's usually a combination of nutrient deficiencies, maybe some bad beliefs, right? Your thinking. And then also, diet and lifestyle are going to play a role in that as well. And your nervous system. How's your nervous system? Are you even aware that you should be working on your nervous system? So there's multiple variables, and that's where functional health can help you, because it can give you more time that the traditional model can't give you.
I love that so much because so many of the parents, the mums, the dads, the grandparents, the aunts, uncles who are watching this right now are saying, oh, is that why I'm exhausted? Because I'm not paying attention to my nervous system? Is that why I'm crying myself to sleep? Is that why I have the energy crash at 3 p.m.? Or that
Mm-hmm.
I'm always going for the coffee, the alcohol, the drugs, the smokes, the whatever, to just manage the anxiety or the depression that comes up. I've often said to a lot of people on this podcast that I used to be a drinker, and a decent whack at that. But I don't do that anymore because I'm very aware of what that was causing. And let's be honest, Taimi, I'm not getting Botox. So, that's out of the cards for me. So I'm going to park that. So I love what you do because you integrate your intuition into your work. And for me, that plays a massive role because we are energetic beings. We know this, right? And you, no doubt, can pick up so much of what's going on with someone, probably, no doubt, even through Zoom or through like an online call, because of what's going on. And usually, like you said it so well, there's always an underlying cause. Everything is always about the underlying cause. The weight, the hormonal imbalance, everything is there. It's just that we haven't quite figured out what's going on. So how do you bring the science part of it and the intuition into your work? How does that look?
Oh, well, I guess so. I'm trained as a speech and language pathologist, so I have that background to look at things very, like a true speech correctionist. The simplest terms, wants to fix, right? Wants to fix the speech. I love fixing. Sometimes I have to remember we are human beings, not human widgets, because I love to dig and to figure out. So there's that background, my training there. And then over time with my own struggles with health, one of the things, because I was doing all the, I'm very cerebral. So I was doing all the mental work and trying to figure out the exact supplementation, which I love. And that's what the hair test is all about that I do. But there was also a piece that was disconnected. So like when I was really sick, I couldn't go to the bathroom for like weeks at a time. I remember dry heaving one time at the gym. I was so backed up. That just tells you the disconnect from my mind to my gut. And what do we know about the gut? It's called the second brain. So here I am dry heaving because I'm so disconnected. I'm just pushing and pushing and pushing myself at the gym, can't poop, so anxious, wrapped around the axle. And then a practitioner that I was working with said, why don't you go to yoga? I said, yoga, what? Okay, fine. I figure skated, I danced. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I did. And that hour and 15 minutes in the blazing heat was the best time, because by the end of that session, I laid on that mat and literally bombs could have gone off around me. And I was okay for just those few seconds. And that started to be the deep energy work for my nervous system and my body, right? I'm starting, like, the practice of yoga is really a breathing practice that we put shapes to, but it's really an internal practice. It's like peeling an onion. You're taking off layers to get to when you talk about the philosophy of yoga, right? To get to your true self. So I really fell in love with yoga. I'd already fell in love with health and been studying that. And then I took a long hiatus and just dug into yoga. And yoga is an energy medicine. So when I started to go deeper then in understanding minerals and the foundation of the nutrients that we need, it just, every path that I picked started to build on each other, and the importance of the mind-body connection. You need to have both. We are, like you said, energy beings. Think about a plant. What do plants need? Water and light. So do we. We need light. And so the light is within us. We always say that in yoga, the light within me respects and, appreciates the light within you, because there is light within all of us, but it's buried, especially when you're dealing with, stressful family situations, life situations, caring for loved ones. You've now neglected your own light, both the mind and the body, the physiology and that deep knowing, right? Because we have responsibilities and you have people to take care of. But what if you made that a priority? What if you found your light? What if you talk about energy a lot? People don't realize that sodium is our battery. Sodium and potassium, they give us energy. And most of us are so deficient in those basic electrolytes. Imagine if you just started salting your water. Imagine if you ate a banana and had some potassium instead of eating processed food. Like, there's so many little things we can start to bring in to come back to the balance that we need, so we can find our light, so we can shine it and help those that we love.
You touched there a little bit on your past, and I'd love to, if you're willing to share. You mentioned, I've got it here on my notes, that in the bio you mentioned about trying to be good enough, and I think that this is something that a lot of parents, especially mums who are raising autistic children, go up against day in and day out. This feeling of not being good enough. And it's definitely something that I have battled with at the beginning of, and still do. Like, I'm going to be honest, there are still moments where I'm like, I could be doing more, but like, how much more is enough? Right. So can you just talk a little bit about that whole good enough piece, as to how it related to your past versus how it relates to in your future or in your current?
It's funny. I don't really have that belief anymore. I used to really think I was a loser. Like I had debilitating. I always joke like if the DSM had photos of like each diagnoses and they said like showed you anxiety and depression, like my photo would have been there. Like this is what it looks like. I was a high functioning perfectionistic person, but I was a mess. My nervous system was the littlest thing would jack me up. I mean, hello, I couldn't poop for 3 weeks at a time. Panic attacks. And of course, not good enough was driving a lot of it. Comparison. Because in my soul, going back to that yoga piece, I wasn't happy. I wasn't truly happy. My soul wasn't, my calling hadn't been fulfilled. At that time, I was kind of forced into the career of speech pathology when I really wanted to go into the realm of health and holistic healing. And I was raised to be like, no, this you have to have a job. This you were going to have a family, and I didn't do any of those. I didn't do any of those things. I didn't have a family. I don't have my own children. I've worked with hundreds of children with different disabilities, from everything from autism to Down syndrome. So I've seen parents, come in. I can't obviously know exactly what that feels like, but when you spend hours, with different populations, you can get a flavor of it. But my soul wasn't really happy, and I think it was a reflection of how I showed up in the world. Because now that I do this business and I do what I love, yeah, of course I have the not good enough, like, oh, maybe I'll catch myself with the comparison of, look at that person's business, how can they, they know this, I need to know that too. But then I'm like, wait, no, what are my gifts? What am I passionate about? What do I want to learn more about? What am I here to share with people and learn? And when I take it from that standpoint, again, yoga really helped me to look at things differently. And it's not a religion. It's just a way of life. It can be, because I'm still practicing Catholic. We go to church every Sunday, but yoga is very important to me, because when you're on those four corners of that mat, it's just you and your breath moving through your own body, which builds awareness and builds a place of connection and self-love, and also confidence, and finding what your gifts are. So like a lot of your listeners, right, are parents who are raising children, right, with autism full time. And maybe that's their gift. I know I couldn't do, I don't even have my own kids. So I know I could not do that. But as hard as it is on some of those days for your listeners, it's also probably really awesome too on other days. That's how I feel about my business now. The work, the 15-hour days, the books, the textbooks, the courses, the money that I've spent that my husband's probably crying about. But right, like, it's filled a passion, it's filled a drive, because I'm coming from a place of service.
I love that so much. I think that parents, in particular mums, are so busy that they don't even know that they even have a light. Like, that's where it's at now. Right. That they are so entrenched with guilt and overwhelm and stress and uncertainty, and you keep going, and there is a belief that there's just no time for me. There's no time for me to sit and do the things that I need to do to get back into me and to get back into my body, because I've got to do A, B, C, D, E, all the way up to X, Y, and Z. And so then we just continually to neglect ourselves at the risk of so much. And I often say to parents, you are no good for your child if you're in the hospital. You are no good for your child if you are sick in bed because your immune system is shot and you've got a cold, but the cold has turned into influenza A. And now you can barely get out of bed and you need antibiotics and all the other bits and pieces just to be able to move. That is not helping. That whole martyrdom is not helping you be the best version of yourself. And so I hope that lands for parents listening, because it can feel very overwhelming sometimes. Many people think things like burnout, anxiety, weight gain are just part and parcel of getting older.
Mhm.
How is that not the truth? Like, how can you explain how this doesn't have to be a life sentence?
Yeah, no. You can, if to me, optimization. So health is a very high value. It's probably the highest. It's a little obsessive, probably, right? But it's a healthy obsession, I guess. I could be a lot worse. And it's a high value, and because it's a high value, it's it's something that I'm going to put energy into. So when you think about health optimization, how do you want to be? Like, do you want to collapse into the belief that, oh, I'm now 40, oh, I'm now 50, this is just the way things are because someone with a white coat who has a degree told me that this is how it goes? Do you want to believe that? Okay, you can believe that. Or you can pick a different thought and you can work towards it, because there's lots of people out there much older with lots of different difficult situations that hold health as a high value. So for me, like when I take the hair tissue mineral analysis test, this test, one of the tests that I use, and someone comes to me and they say weight is a problem, the first thing I'm going to look at is there's multiple markers, but one of the big ones is calcium. Is calcium staying in the bones and teeth where it should be, or is it leaching out and going into the soft tissue? Because once it does that, it's a hard white mineral that covers the cell, and now it's weighing the body down. Potassium and sodium can't get in. And it's not only hardening around the cell, it's making me emotionally distant, but it's causing a heaviness in my body and it's increasing weight. Because sodium and potassium can't get in, I don't have the energy to go work out, to go do the things. And now I'm in that, I'm more likely to be craving those crappy foods because I'm feeding that feeling that's happening from the cellular block. So that's when I look at the minerals, I want to see, are the first four minerals balanced? We want to get them as close as we can. And when calcium is super high, magnesium is super low usually. And magnesium is your calming mineral. You need it for at least 800 different functions of the body. Calcium and magnesium need to work together. If calcium is high, mag is low, we want to bring magnesium in. Magnesium also helps you poop certain types. So that's going to help move things to release, right? So that's just one aspect. Anxiety, I could go on for days about how I can look at that test. And I use another test. I use a low penetrance epigenetics test, nutrigenomics, where I look at 166 different misspellings of the body. And when those misspellings are off in certain pathways, anxiety and depression, they are front and center. Because if you don't have enough folate, if you don't have enough choline, you're not able to do the processes in the body to make the neurotransmitters of serotonin and dopamine, which are your excitatory chemicals, or the calming chemicals of acetylcholine, to bring the body down. So it's really, when you start to dig into the data of your own body, you can get to the root causes. Now, sometimes weight, especially, for women as we move towards menopause, can be a little more challenging. And so you really need to optimize hormones. You got to look at the thyroid. You have to bring in, most of the time, you got to bring those hormones back into the body. Some women don't want to, and that's okay. There's other ways around it that can help. And then you have the whole advent now of peptides, which is like a second layer of optimization once you've built the foundation of giving the body what it needs. So no, I can't buy into the fact that, this is just how it's going to be. This is my body. This is how it's going to be. No way, Jose. Till the day I die, I will be working and to optimize, because it's important for me. I want to feel good. I want to do all the things. I want to be 95 years old on that yoga mat. That's what I want.
I love that
And
so much. I've got a very, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no. I'm just thinking your parents, right? The people listening to, they want to be there. They want to see their kids grow up and maybe, depending on where their life's going to take them, see those milestones, right? The way that those kids are going to have those milestones. They want to see that. You want the energy for it. So why, I know that you talked about too, like people are giving and giving and giving. Well, ask for help. When the therapist shows up to work with your kid, say, okay, You're here for 45 minutes. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to do whatever. Like, then I'm going to come back, because like you got to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can put it on anybody else. And also, you're setting the tone of behaviors in your home that your child is going to model.
I love that, because, you know, I feel like I'm at the point of perimenopause, and there's definitely been some weight gain. Oh,
Yeah.
shock horror. And I just think that, but if I look at the last 10 years, the last decade has been so full of stress and anxiety, right? How do we expect our bodies to be optimal when we are putting our bodies under so much strain, right? And granted, I understand, like, it's not, I wish I could just say, oh, we'll just flick a switch and we're not going to have to worry about stress or anxiety anymore. You can have the awareness, and I think that the awareness piece is what really pulls you through. But I don't necessarily know that, especially for parents of autistic children, that it sort of ever goes away. I think there's always an element of it hiding here or there, and it goes through ebbs and flows, because if our children are having a great time, great, it's at an all-time low. But if you're having a child who's having a full meltdown and they're not coping, and they're, you know, it's going to be at an all-time high. I love that also the piece where you said that you want to live a long life, and that the people watching, that is a fear of theirs. What's going to happen when I die? And it's a belief that sometimes some parents have, that no one can look after my child the way that I do, because no one, you know, so then unintentionally they end up causing illness within their own body. And I've seen this multiple times through a variety of different people. And, you know, and carers are they're so susceptible to it, because it's just so much going on, right? And there's a lot to manage and a lot to deal with. So I guess what I'm asking is, how do we then manage that anxiety when we feel like we're the only ones that can do it? We're the only people that can really like carry this load. Because I definitely know that there's parents out there that don't want to hand over the reins, because maybe they're scared that, or maybe they feel like that they are the only person that really knows their child the best, which is no doubt true. But how do we manage that? Is it just the awareness piece that comes in, that we're more aware of the anxiety coupled with the testing and everything else? Or is there something else that we should be doing?
Well, I mean, I don't have my own children. I have stepchildren, so I can't speak
Still the same.
Yeah. But, you know, let me take it from like the nerdy functional health approach I would take. Because fear-based thinking, right, can come from minerals being out of whack, because you're so depleted. You're like hanging on for dear life. You've got metals interfering. So when we see copper, copper's like Goldilocks. It needs to be just right in the body. And when it's not, you can get a list of from here to China of symptoms. Things like wired but tired, schizophrenic, bipolar symptoms, hair loss, weight gain. You know, that waking up at night, because metals, they sit on the cell receptor, so then the cells can't get the right minerals in and out of the cell. So when you think about, like, from a fear-based standpoint, you've got a body that's under optimized, it's under functioning, that's hanging on for dear life. Of course, you're going to have fear. When you start to see, and I see this with people, especially some of my really sick clients, they come to me. I'm thinking of one client in particular. When I met her, she looked like the Walking Dead. She had SIBO 6 times. She had migraines. She couldn't basically be in light. She was stuck in bed. It was a sad place. And it's so funny, I was watching her over time, and we still have a road to go, because her pattern was so depleted. But she's like, I saw her the other day and she looks so bright and she's happy and she can go out. And her thinking is also not as fear-based as when I first met her, because I've given her body back energy. This was somebody that couldn't get out of bed, that had to work basically in the dark and could only go to work for a few hours. She used to love to work out. She couldn't do any of that when I met her. like I said, we're slowly getting back there, but all of her minerals were bottomed out, and she had metals, high levels of copper, other metals interfering. So the body was burdened and carrying all this stress. Of course, there's going to be a mental story to go with that. So, and you go deeper, we looked at her genetics too. She's prone to anxiety. So if you know that you are prone to anxiety, because at one time your ancestors needed it to live well, and they did. In this modern world, that those SNPs aren't really needed, but you're prone to it. We put things into place. It becomes mandatory that somebody that's prone to anxiety, such as myself, goes to yoga weekly, does breath work, has monthly appointments. And people are going to say, well, I'm caretaking for my kid. Well, guess what? I run a business. I still work part-time as a speech pathologist. I have a home, a family, all the things. You decide to make the time. Balance to me is a word that just doesn't exist. Like there's balance is a great word. And I have this great idea of what it could be like, but honestly, throw that word out. You got to do you, and what are your priorities? What do you value? What do you want? What do you believe? And build your life around that. And just because maybe this family over here has this and with this kid and this is what they're doing, okay, put your horse blinders on. What do you want for your health, your kid, your family? Do those things. Pick those things.
Yeah, it's absolutely so true. And so many of the women I see are, the word that comes to mind is stuck. It's like, it feels like they just can't move through this energetic barrier of like fear and the uncertainty. It's like a barrier, a wall, if you will. And every time they try to push through, they just bounce right off and just go back. And it's this idea that, what if our children can flourish, right? And it's because we're prone to put the what if in a negative context. What if he doesn't have any friends? What if she never gets married? What if blah, blah, blah? But I don't know about you, Taimi, but I'm not God and I'm not a psychic. So I will safely say, well, what if he does have friends? And what if he does go to school and becomes exactly what he was meant to be on this earth, right?
Yeah.
Because for me, there's always someone bigger at play. Yes, we have free will. Yes, we do make decisions.
Yes.
But, what are the chances? I often hear these people say this, what are the chances of you even being alive? It's like 1 in a bazillion, because, your sperm and your dad's sperm and your mum's egg and meeting at that specific time on that specific day. And it's just, so who knows what the future entails?
Right.
But if we can switch that intuition back on, especially for parents and especially for mums, I say this because we've got so much negative, hate, negative self-talk that just ruminates up here and just won't stop. You should have done that better. You should have anticipated that meltdown. You should have figured that out. Yeah. You should have not given him the apple because the apple has set him off. The lines are just insane, how much we carry, which sometimes is just simply and purely out of our control. But we try to take hold of it as if it's our own and try to wear it like armor, so that we can say, again, going back to that martyrdom thing, that we're carrying it like a badge, a badge of honor, to say that yes, we are doing it so hard and that we are struggling. But I want our community to shine. I want our community to rise and to be able to see from a different perspective. Not always doable in some instances. And I know that it's so hard, but I know people, Taimi, who have got children who are, they're quadriplegic. They can't walk. They can't talk. They are talking through a device, and they're some of the happiest people that I know, right? It can be done. But again, like we were saying, it's a choice. It's a choice about which way you want to live your life. How is it going to work? Because there's always going to be things that are going to come up in everyday life. Mistakes are going to happen. Houses, get things happen. Doors get broken. Walls get hit. And yes, absolutely. And I know some parents are rolling their eyes and saying, "But you don't have it happen on a daily basis." 100%. I totally get that. But we need to see what we can do, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot take care of your child. And it just, that fear piece really comes in quite heavily. So we talk about the mineral imbalances, and I love that these are even an option. You know, I would love to know that these probably weren't even an option maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think, is it a newer thing, or am I being mistaken?
No, it's been around for quite some time. It's just there's only a couple labs that can be trusted, and now they're because you really need to support the body with, right, based on what the data shows, the nutrients that your body needs, but then you also need to be able to use what's called a binder. So think about it as like your cleanup crew. You got to go in and you got to go after the biggest dirt, the dirtiest piece in the body. Maybe it's copper, maybe it's aluminum. You know, we're going to come into this world with metals, we're going to die with metals, but we're going to think about ourselves as a bucket, and we want to lower the load, the toxic load of that bucket as much as we can. And we want to give the body the energy, the nutrients that we need. It's funny, I'm reading literally a textbook on thiamine deficiency, and the amount of, just the processed food that we are exposed to, and then the chemicals that are sprayed onto that food, the depletion of thiamine and magnesium, two very big nutrients that the body needs. So if you have a body that has some genetic misspellings, that doesn't have enough of the raw materials like folate and choline to do the jobs, and then you're out here, trying to take care of all the things in a world that's so toxic, where there's more, crud, unfortunately, at us than not, and you don't have the ability to detox, you don't have the support, yeah, life's going to really struggle. That was me. I'm a genetic disaster. Like, my genes are nasty, and I had a lot of nutrient imbalances, which is why I was struggling and was so prone to anxiety and depression. And then I turned out an autoimmune disease on top of it. So, and then I got bit by a tick. Like, there's so many layers, but I kept pushing full speed ahead, until I couldn't do it anymore. And I kept banging, at the traditional model, and they kept saying, here's an antidepressant, here's an antidepressant. And I was like, no, thankfully I'm vain. And so I also am curious and I don't know the other word, obstinate, maybe that's not the right word, but I wanted to know why was I struggling this way? And so that's where the functional health, really helped me to figure it out. It took me, it was a winding road. I didn't get to hair tissue mineral until about 3.5 years ago. I did a lot of other tests before that, and every test along the way helped me and led me to the next step and the next step, because it truly is, it's a healing journey. I know that's such a cliche term, but it's true, because you're learning something along the way that you need for that time before you can go to the next time for the thing that you need. So to me, starting with the cell, giving the cell what it needs at the nutrient level, because we can't just do it through food. Our world's too dirty at this point. We have to support with other aspects, and mineralization is that other aspect. And once you do that, you see a change in your body, but you also see a change in your mind. It's profound.
I love that. I agree with you that the world is too dirty. And it's crazy the amount of sprays that are being put on our foods. And unfortunately, a lot of people will go into the supermarket and buy the produce and just think that that is the most healthiest thing ever, but it's just full of sprays. And not everyone can buy organic. Not everyone has the funds to buy organic, but if that is the case, then I often will refer clients to the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15.
Yes.
That's always a good place to start. And if you guys who are listening, if you don't know, I will add it to the slides on my socials later on today so that you can see what it looks like. God, there's so many questions going through my mind, but I just think, if we're supplementing, like, I think people who are watching this, are they thinking, okay, well, we're going to go see Taimi and she's going to give us like 30 pills to take every day, right? Because that's what I'm sure people are thinking. So is that true, or is that false?
I know. I feel like it started to go there, and then I, of course, veered off. It started like that before the company that I partnered with in Canada. There's my wonderful mentor at Vicon, Lisa, saw that there was this hole. why, you see all these deficiencies on the test and you got to buy all these supplements. And she put it into a powder formulation. So when my clients come to me and we go over the data, I then can say, okay, here's your plan. And I list out exactly what they need supplement wise, the dosage, once we know medications and all the things. And I can say, you have a choice. You can do it in a powder formulation for 4 months, or you can take it in capsules. I always like the powder because I think it works better. And it's literally handmade. The bottle, it's like a tub with your name on it because it's specific to you. No one else can take those minerals and nutrients because they don't have the issues and needs that your test showed. And it's all in a powder form. You just pop it in your water. I put it in my protein shake, and there you go, twice a day, and you're good to go. Now, it doesn't mean that everything is rainbows and butterflies and there's no herxing or die-off period, because there might be. But over time, it just gets better and better. Like, my hair did not used to look like this. When I started mineralizing, I had short hair, but it was thin. I have Hashimoto's. So it's, it was out, hair, nails was always a struggle. I've been mineralizing for 3.5 years now. My hair continues to grow and be shiny and healthy, better than it's ever been, because as I've done this process, I'm dumping metals. I had a copper IUD for 15 years. Copper is so toxic to the body when it's not regulated. I had that. I had, if your mother had any sort of birth control history, if you had any birth control history yourself besides an IUD, that dysregulates the metal copper. And like I said, copper is an emotional mineral that functions like Goldilocks, and it needs to be just right. It works with iron. It works with zinc, which helps with stomach acid. Every mineral has enemies and friends that it works with and against to help your body function. And everybody has a different patterning that they, depending on how they metabolize things, what's going on, even emotionally, their stress, that pattern will then also need to be supported in a certain way. And that's where you start to see the shifts, like you said, in weight, in emotions, in sleep. I have a woman who hasn't been able to sleep more than 4 hours for the past 30 years. We just started mineralizing, and we're using the binder Zeolite. It's an amazing product. And we're up to 6 hours of her sleeping before she wakes up. And she's only just about a month into her mineral formulation. But with the binder and the minerals, I'm teaching her body that it's okay to relax and to go to sleep. It's profound. When you dig into this world and you look, I always call it like your car, you know what I mean? Something's wrong with your car, you lift up the hood, you're digging around in there. It's the same thing. You're lifting up the hood of the body and you're saying, okay, what is going on? Trace, find the thing that you want to go after. Maybe it's the leaky gut. It's always the leaky gut, but I address it differently because I'm starting with the cell.
Yeah, that the sleep loss is definitely, I can think of a few people actually. One is the person who their child has never slept through the night, and so they're always never really fall into a deep sleep because they're always like hyper vigilant on what's going on, if their child's going to be okay, or if their child is going to to flee, to run away, to elope. Or the other side is the mum going through menopause and just not sleeping at all, and like functioning, like you said, on 3 or 4 hours sleep, which is just impossible. Like, how, I don't know how people can even function on. I can bear, if I'm not getting at least 7, we're not coping. So
Same.
yeah, I totally get that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was agreeing with you. I'm 1000%.
So sometimes, but not always, we have parents, especially mums, who are maybe seeing a therapist or a doctor already for some of these symptoms that are coming up, whether it's the weight gain, the anxiety, depression, whatever it is. How does your work then complement what's going on with who they're currently seeing?
Yes, I have lots of people who I actually want your doctor to be aware. When I'm working with somebody, and I have lots of people who come on a number of medications, either because they would like to build the body status up so they can go back to their doctor and get off of them, or because they've actually are on so many medications that they're curious if they need all of these. Like, why is this happening? One of my very first clients, she's been with me since I started doing the mineralization. She came to me on 12 medications. She's now down to 6, I believe, 5 or 6. 2 of them are blood pressure. Genetically, sometimes it can take a while to work through to balance blood pressure, but that's a lot of medications to be on. And over time, we've been able to whittle those down. Once her body's gotten strong, she's been able to go back to her doctor and be like, hey, I think can we try this? I feel better. And they were able to do things. So 1000%, I love collaboration with other practitioners. I love seeing people get better. I will work with whoever if it means that the client is going to get the result. I get a lot of clients who are on anxiety medications, depression medications. They don't want to be, and they saw my story because that was me. I was told by a psychiatrist, Taimi, you're going to need these antidepressants like a diabetic needs their insulin. And I thought, F you, I will. And it was good. It was good that she said that. She needed to be a part of my story. I needed to be at that point because I was then determined to figure out, to prove her wrong. Maybe out of spite, maybe out of vanity. I don't know. But I figured it out. I was able to do it. If you would have met the girl 15 years ago, this person who I was and who I am now are completely different. It wasn't always easy. And I did a lot of work. I did a lot of work because I was determined to figure out. I worked on my mind. I worked on my body. I worked on my beliefs. And I still do to this day. Like, I have multiple practitioners I work with because it's important to me and to show other people that it can be done. But I don't think anything that we do is easy that we really want. So I think that, we all have our own crosses to bear. And that was mine. And yeah, is there a propensity to be anxious when shit goes sour? Sometimes, of course, that's an old habit, but I'm aware of it. And every time I maybe don't go back as far, it's like a growth. That percentage I've seen that is grown. Like, I've changed, right? Because we're always evolving. We're always changing. If we want that, we just have to find the tools to help us. So absolutely, I try to give my clients tools that they can take forward and work with other practitioners in conjunction, because that means they're just going to be that much better.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important. And there's so much of it that we can't see just by looking at you, right? How many times have you gone into a doctor and said, oh, I'm not feeling well? Oh, no, you're fine. We've looked at this like very broad blood work and, you're A-okay. And I just think you're not even scratching the surface. How can we possibly know what it's like? And women, we just vary so much. We vary in our cycles. We vary in how we're showing up. Like, it's ridiculous to think that like this one basic blood test is going to show how what's not working and what is working. So I am grateful for people like you who have done the research, who have done the studies, who have figured it out so that we can get better. Because I often say to my husband, I want to be that person that, like, the alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning and I'm like, let's go. Like, yeah. Let's go. Some days it's a bit like, oh, I'm coming. I'm getting there. And then other days are like, yes, let's go. Let's good to go. Like you, I want to be very great and very old, probably more closer to I've often said to my husband, my belief is that because he's 7 years older than me. So I'm like, well, you have to be like 107. Okay. So I'm just letting you know, you're going to have to live a long life. But I said, I want to be at my 100th birthday, putting those candles on, dancing around, like having the best time. That is such a core belief for me. And, but our beliefs, we know how much our beliefs shape us. But now it turns out that those beliefs are being impacted by what's going on the inside as well, which I had no idea. I didn't know that the minerals were impacting whether, because the way I interpret it, and Taimi, can you please correct me if I'm wrong, but if your minerals are out of balance, maybe that belief is only like a 20% belief. Whereas if those minerals were right, that belief would actually be like a 90% belief.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Like, Think about from a binging. I have a lot of women, a lot of us have disordered eating for different reasons. Binge eating, not eating, restricted eating. When I start to optimize people's minerals and give them back the nutrients that they need, they have better ability to tell when they're full. They have less cravings once they dump copper. Copper always likes to spike up the chocolate craving. But once you clean out those metals, right? Because usually with metals, there's yeast, there's candida, there's parasites, there's an overgrowth of bad bacteria that's sucking in that sugar. So once you are able to target that, you're better control of your food. And the genetics test, it's amazing too that I use, because it shows you may have a propensity to overeat. So now that you know that, and then you give the body the right nutrients, you're even now more aware because you've seen that data to be like, oh shoot, I overeat. Okay, I'm aware of that. But I'm, even though I'm maybe a little tired today, I'm giving my body the right nutrients. I'm going to be less likely to keep eating, because once you know something, you can't unknow it. And when you know information about your body, then you're going to perform better. And think about it. Like, you're looking at your kid who you created. So you see the stuff going on there that you don't really like. What do you think's happening here? Start here, because I don't do this. There's other practitioners that do. I haven't worked with children. There's a whole niche of that for practitioners that just work with children with different disabilities, or just kids in general, to support them, because obviously, like, they came from somewhere, and if you're struggling, right, do the math. So I think it's just a great way to go after so many behaviors that maybe we've worked on, cognitive therapy, talk therapy, but we haven't been able to actually get to the root of, because you didn't support the physiology.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to ask you. Like, we obviously spoke about, perimenopause and menopause, but like going the other way, like how young are we talking when we're dealing with children? Because obviously there are plenty of functional medicine doctors in Australia who are looking after, younger children. But in your experience, how young are you potentially going?
They practitioners I work with go as, women carrying babies, people who've had babies that are less than a year old. They hair tissue test animals. They do dogs. They do horses. We actually have learned a lot from the animals. I stick with 18 to like 90. That's kind of my range, because I see a lot of people with anxiety, depression. I do a lot of autoimmune stuff. I catch a lot of autoimmune, probably because that's right where my own life kind of led me. But oh yeah, there are tons of people who specialize just with kids.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Okay. Before we wrap up, can you just let everyone know where they can find you on socials and how they can connect with you?
Yes, I would love that. You can find me on Instagram at A Stretch Beyond Yoga. I'm on Facebook as Taimi Lawlor. I'm on TikTok too, but I feel like it's hit or miss over there. A Stretch Beyond Yoga, and then my website, which is about to get redone, so it's going to look so much more professional, is A Stretch Beyond Yoga. And yeah, those are the places. I hang out on Instagram the most.
Yeah, great. Now there you have a freebie that you would like to share with the community. So it's called the Fatigue and Anxiety Fix.
Yes.
And how can people get their hands on the freebie?
Yes, they can email me directly at a stretchbeyondyoga@gmail.com. So not, it should not a. So stretch, my email is stretchbeyondyoga@gmail.com. You email me and I will send you that document right to your inbox.
No worries, guys. I will actually include all those information on the show notes, as well as on socials as well, so that you have that there. Taimi, is there anything that you would like to add before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for taking the time to interview me and get a chance to talk to you. And I think all of your listeners are really lucky to have this community, you spearheading it, and the support that because it's a community. It really is a community, and you need to lean on each other and not compare, and lean on each other for strength and the tools, because it's a community and your kids are showing you something special, right? They're a gift. Either you guys are doing some sort of energetic exchange. So it's all for the greater good. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And if we can better ourselves, it's only going to better our children, right? You're
100%.
pouring into yourself is never going to be at a disadvantage to your child, ever,
Mm.
ever, 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 ever. So making sure that you can wake up and be full of energy. And I love that you were saying that they can customize the powder to like specifically for you. I love that because that's such an amazing point to be able to go, great. I don't even have to worry about taking 5,000 tablets. It's just a scoop and I'm done.
Right.
And yeah, were you going to say something? Sorry, go ahead.
No. And it has to be specific to you and your data, right? So, and that is the coolest part because it's specific to you and what you need for you. And maybe someone else in your house tests too, and it's completely different because you're patterning, right? And again, goes back to the energy and the gifts to get you to where you need to be. It's fascinating.
And so if anyone wants to work with you, how do they go about doing that?
Sure. They can reach out to me on social media. I always offer free consults. I want to hear your story. I want to make sure that we're a good fit. 9 times out of 10, we are. And I want to give you a chance to, ask me questions. I know because a lot of times people say, well, you're not a doctor. Where's the science? And that's okay because you're right. I'm not, but I'm somebody who lived it and I'm somebody who studies it morning, noon, and night. And I want to give you another tool. And if it's not the right tool, that's okay. Maybe I'll know a different tool that you might need, but at least I'm going to listen, like really hold the space for you without judgment to try to help you figure out how to get to the root of what you need to feel better because you can if that's what you want.
Well said. Absolutely. And we all want to feel better. This can be a heavy journey, and anything that's going to help just a little bit is something that we really need to take hold of with both hands. Because like Mel Robbins says quite often, no one's coming to save you, right? No one's coming in on a white horse coming to like save you and figure it out and make sure that you are getting all of your supplements and doing the exercise and all that sort of stuff. So anything that can help us really shine, and like you were saying before in the beginning of the podcast, shine our light. Why wouldn't we want to take care of that? Why wouldn't we want to take that with both hands? Because Lord knows there is a lot of information out there, and it's very hard to decipher what is right for you and what is not right for you. And over here, the supplements industry is not regulated, so you can basically go and get whatever you want. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, especially if you don't know what you're supplementing for. So yeah, and there's so many things, and especially for thyroid and all the stuff that when you're young and you're so depleted after having given birth, then all the stress and anxiety of having giving a diagnosis of an autistic child, and then potentially moving into perimenopause. Like I feel like as women, we get thrown quite a few things our way, and we just want to make sure that we are on top of it. So Taimi, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I appreciate you turning all of the very hard jargon into things that we can completely understand, because I know that there is a lot of technical things. And we will chat to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Taimi.